Alright, so new South Park just dropped. I am currently very ill. I wasn't planning on making a video, but you know, being the South Park guy, I kinda have to. So quick update on the previous video I made. It actually got taken down due to copyright by Paramount, which is the first time in a very long time I've had a video straight up blocked due to copyright. Normally they just end up taking my revenue from it, but I've currently disputed this copyright claim, which means that it's gonna be back up until they decide what they're gonna do. Oddly enough, my boy Slush also got his video taken down on the same episode, so I'm sure you could link this to some grand conspiracy, but I really don't care. But anyways, new South Park, let's talk about it. So normally I write like a whole script for my videos, but due to my illness, I don't really feel like doing that right now, so this one's just coming off the dome, we're freestyling it. So the first thing I noticed about this episode is the fact that it's labeled as Season 28, Episode 1, instead of Season 27, Episode 6. I thought this was a bug at first with the broadcasting, but no, on Paramount Plus it says this is Season 28, Episode 1. People have speculated that the reason they've jumped to another season is to make up for last year's season that they didn't have. That doesn't really make sense to me because you're getting the same amount of episodes either way, so I don't know about that. For whatever reason, it seems like they're going with two 5-episode seasons back to back. I have no clue why, but I guess welcome to Season 28, everyone. We're done with Season 27. Hey, it's Editor Blooms here. I'm currently losing my mind because I think I just realized why they decided to skip to Season 28. I genuinely think the reason they decided to skip to Season 28 instead of finishing Season 27 is because the next episodes would be Episodes 6 and 7. I know that sounds kind of insane, but we don't have any explanation, and it would not surprise me at all if that was totally an intentional joke they made. Anyways, back to the video. And we're opening Season 28 with an absolute bang as they go after the 6-7 meme. Now, the 6-7 meme is something I would have no clue how to explain to anyone above the age of like 15. It's just kind of one of those if you know kind of things. It's just like wrapped in 18 different layers of irony, and it's totally incomprehensible to anyone that hasn't been following the meme since its inception. And luckily, the episode doesn't even try to explain it at all because it's pretty obvious that Matt and Trey have no clue what it means. And I think that's for the best because instead of trying to explain it, they just use it as like this weird satanic ritual to bring about the Antichrist. After I saw this teaser, I made a joke on Twitter about how they need to get Trey's daughter out of the writer's room, which obviously was just a joke, but it is pretty funny to try to imagine her explaining this to Trey and him just being completely dumbfounded by it. But the whole 6-7 thing was really just a minor plot point. The biggest focus of this episode was actually on Christianity. Specifically, it targets this new brand of like MAGA Christianity that seems to be pretty far removed from any actual Christian values. And because of Satan being pregnant and the coming of the Antichrist, they end up inviting an expert on the topic to the town. This being Peter Thiel. And what's funny is I actually predicted this in my last video. Although I do find it a little odd that he's so against the coming of the Antichrist considering his ties to Peter Thiel, but that's a topic for another day. I don't really know how to feel about this episode yet. Watching it on all kinds of cold medicine definitely didn't help with my viewing experience. It really kind of felt like a fever dream. But enough of the intro, let's just get into it. This video is sponsored by Raycon. It is Raycon's anniversary, and what better way to celebrate than with a deal on the Everyday Earbuds Classic. They're currently 20% off, so I couldn't think of a better time to get your hands on them. They're super reliable, super comfy, and just super easy to take anywhere. You'll see why they've been a fan favorite since day one. The Everyday Earbuds Classic are loaded with tons of upgrades, things like active noise cancellation, multi-point connectivity, so you can pair with multiple devices at once, and an ergonomic fit that actually stays put no matter what you're doing. They also have a ton of new colorways that are super cool. I'm personally a big fan of the rose gold. I feel like they kind of go perfectly with the color of my head, which is why they're more like an accessory than just earbuds. Only 10 minutes of charging gives you up to 90 minutes of playtime, and total with the case, you can get up to 32 hours of battery life. Over 3 million customers already love Raycons, and they come with a 30-day happiness guarantee, so if you don't love them, you can always return it and you have nothing to lose. I personally am a big fan of Raycon. I use them all the time, and I think you should too. So that's why right now, if you click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/blooms, you can get 20% off your Everyday Earbuds Classic. That is the link in the description, or go to buyraycon.com/blooms to get your 20% off. And thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video. The episode opens with Butters going around doing the 6-7 thing to all the people in the school, and everyone finds it absolutely hilarious. PC Principal, now known as Power Christian Principal, begins to think that all this 6-7 is some satanic numerology stuff, so of course he invites the expert on the Antichrist to come talk to the school.
Peter Thiel knows about the Antichrist. Peter Thiel knows about the Antichrist. Let's learn about the Antichrist today.
I love how they give him a little catchy jingle every time he comes on screen. It reminded me a lot of the James Cameron jingle from back in season 16. Now, if you don't know who Peter Thiel is, he's basically a billionaire who's helped start a bunch of different companies, specifically Palantir. I'm not going to go into depth about what Palantir is specifically because it's its own rabbit hole, but essentially it's a mass surveillance company that uses AI to correlate data it's collected, and the objective is to use this AI to better understand and predict crime. It's essentially the most intrusive form of mass surveillance we have ever seen, and they have a lot of connections to things like the CIA and the White House, considering their connection to JD Vance. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but this is a huge rabbit hole, and I definitely encourage you to look into it. But one odd quirk of Peter Thiel specifically is that he seems to be very interested in the Antichrist. In fact, he has gone out of his way to give entire private lectures about the Antichrist, which is kind of weird.
It's so strange to have this, you build military AI, military drone, autonomous drone technology to export to war zones all over the world. You build domestic surveillance technology to surveil our friends and neighbors. And then your other pet passion is the Antichrist. It's odd.
Thiel explains to the students that the reason the Antichrist is coming now is because Trump's penis was small enough to fit inside of Satan, which is kind of a funny way to make that like an actual plot point instead of just a throwaway joke. So meanwhile, Trump's at the White House jerking off with a pair of tweezers, which, despite how dumb that is, I thought it was kind of funny. When JD Vance interrupts him to tell him that they've shut down another abortion clinic, but he also reminds him that there is one more abortion clinic that's still open. Now, we learned in the previous episode that JD Vance is actually pulling all the strings and he wants Trump to get rid of the baby. So obviously this is his way of suggesting he goes and gets an abortion. Jesus has a talk with PC Principal and comes to realize that his idea of Christianity isn't super aligned with what Christ actually taught.
What branch of Christianity are you?
The kind that loves his country and doesn't tolerate any fucking fags.
Yeah, see, I really think I don't belong here.
He also mentions that the vice principal, Strong Woman, has converted to his form of Christianity, and we get our first look at what that means. It's interesting because as PC Principal became Power Christian Principal, one of the first questions I had was, how does Strong Woman feel about this? So it is nice to finally see how she feels about it and that she's now aligned with PC Principal, but I do kind of wish they had shown more of the steps it took to get to this point, because it's like kind of Strong Woman's whole thing that she's very stubborn and isn't going to do something just because she's told to do it. Whereas it was very believable that PC Principal could be swayed in his beliefs, it wasn't as believable for Strong Woman. So I definitely would have liked to see them expand on this a little bit and show more of the process of her becoming this modern day Christian. Meanwhile, Cartman has begun laughing so hard at the 6-7 meme that he just throws up every time he hears it. And this isn't important now, but it'll come more into play later. PC Principal invites Jesus on a double date with a good Christian woman, and it just becomes more obvious to Jesus that these modern day MAGA Christian people are just not really for him.
So I just started reading the Bible, you know? I mean, I didn't actually read the Bible, but I listened to a lot of podcasts.
So Trump goes to the abortion clinic to try to convince the doctor to sneak into his room and give Satan an abortion. But of course he refuses, citing the fact that he wouldn't even know how to do an abortion on the Antichrist.
To do that, you need some kind of expert on the Antichrist.
Peter Thiel.
Peter Thiel explains to the teachers that all the students are involved in this satanic cult involving the numbers 6 and 7, and in order to help them, he just needs all of their data. Mr. Adler sees exactly what he's trying to do here and points it out for the rest of the teachers.
Freely handing people's personal data over to some tech billionaire preaching shit about the Bible?
PC Principal then accuses him of having a problem with Christianity and beats the crap out of him for it. Now, the message here is not very subtle, obviously showing how people like Peter Thiel and even this administration are weaponizing Christianity in order to justify their actions as we move closer and closer to a full-blown authoritarian police state. This is made even more obvious as Peter Thiel goes through all the school security cams and tries to make these insane conclusions from them.
Two girls doing the same thing.
Wait, why is there a camera inside the girl's bathroom?
To stop the Antichrist.
So as soon as Jesus and PC Principal leave, Peter Thiel gives a call to JD Vance, who explains to him that he'll have access to all of the data he could ever want as long as this baby isn't born. Now, of course, this isn't related to the real world in any way. This is totally fictional. But on an unrelated note, did you know that JD Vance and Peter Thiel are actually really good friends? In fact, it's been alleged that Peter Thiel essentially groomed JD Vance into becoming a venture capitalist and later a politician. And despite JD Vance being an outspoken critic of Trump at the time, Peter Thiel actually went out of his way to take JD Vance to Mar-a-Lago and smooth things out with Trump. And on top of this, Peter Thiel actually recruited a bunch of venture capitalists to help fund JD Vance's political career, on top of his own donations, which included a $15 million donation, which is the largest amount of money donated to a single Senate candidate ever. So this has led some to speculate that maybe the dude who runs the mass surveillance company has some ulterior motives in getting someone elected to presidency. Now, of course, I would never say that personally, but some might. Anyways, JD Vance gives another call to Peter Thiel once he's back at the White House, and says a line that, again, has nothing to do with anything in the real world.
When I become president, I will give you full access to everyone's data.
So Peter Thiel is going to Cartman's house because he's been vomiting nonstop every time 6-7 is mentioned, and he still believes that 6-7 is somehow tied to the Antichrist and demonic possession. When he arrives, we get this foggy exterior shot of Cartman's house with him walking up to the door, and it's very obvious that this is a parody of The Exorcist. The parody continues as Thiel meets Cartman, and he decides to test just how far gone he is.
Would you like to know how long it took me to get here?
How long?
Around 6 or 7 minutes, I'm not really
Meanwhile, Jesus is on another double date with PC Principal, and he's getting really fed up with this whole MAGA Christianity thing.
You know, they're all just a bunch of libtards anyways. I know what's up. I listen to podcasts. You want to know who I think the Antichrist is? Greta Thunberg.
PC Principal follows him to the bathroom and begins to accuse him of not liking Christianity or having a problem with it, and Jesus explains to him what his real problems are with this movement.
Look, I don't know what you think Christianity is, but it has nothing to do with that. You need a way to bully people, and you're using the Bible to do it.
Of course, this leads to PC Principal then beating up Jesus, which is again a not so subtle commentary on how far removed these people's beliefs actually are from that of Christ, to the point where PC Principal is literally beating up Jesus. Meanwhile, Peter Thiel is still attempting to exorcise Cartman, but he doesn't get anywhere, and he tells Leanne that he has to take Cartman to DC. We then cut back to Jesus sadly walking through the streets as he tries to reconcile what Christianity has become, but in the end he decides to return to the restaurant and grab his Christian woman, and he fully embraces what it really means to be a modern Christian. Now, this definitely surprised me because personally, I didn't expect Jesus to give in to PC Principal's new Christianity, and at this point, I don't really understand why he even did, because this is where the episode ends. So realistically, I think they're going to pick up these plots in the next episode and continue with a more serialized story. And I'm sure during the story, they're going to explain why Jesus made this decision and what that actually means. They also left Peter Thiel's story on a cliffhanger with him saying that he needs to take Cartman to DC, so to me, it definitely seems like they've planned out some kind of overarching storyline that they will follow in the next couple of episodes. So now let's go ahead and talk about the things I liked and didn't like about this episode. So like I said at the beginning, I really do not know how to feel about this episode. One thing they continued from the previous episode that I appreciated in that episode was the fact that the Trump and Satan plotline was very minimal in the episode. I think at this point they've kind of found the perfect amount of Trump and Satan to be in the episode without it just becoming super annoying and overdone. And again, I think that just lends itself to these plots because they're funnier when they're not overdone. And I think in this case it was still pretty funny with him continuing his quest to get an abortion for Satan. I also ended up really enjoying the Jesus and PC Principal plotline that played out. Having Jesus be at odds with this new brand of Christianity was a pretty funny way to show just how far removed this MAGA Christianity is from anything Jesus believed or taught. And I really like how they tied that idea into how the government and Peter Thiel are using this form of Christianity as a tool. Peter Thiel specifically positioning himself to say, guys, we should totally be worried about the Antichrist. Who knows when it's going to come? But don't worry, I'm on your side and I'm here to protect you. And all you have to do to have that protection is give up all of your freedom and liberty. It's a tale as old as time, convincing people that giving up their freedom and privacy is totally worth it as long as they're safe. And using Christianity to fearmonger about the coming of the Antichrist is a very effective way to get people to buy into whatever you're selling. And in this case, that is a totalitarian surveillance state. And I did really enjoy that they made fun of Peter Thiel in this episode. I thought they did a great job with it. Specifically, I really loved the Exorcist parody at the end. I honestly think that was probably the highlight of the episode for me. And of course, Peter Thiel's theme song was incredibly catchy. Now, honestly, there wasn't much I specifically disliked about this episode. Obviously, the 6-7 stuff was just kind of cringe, but I mean, I thought they executed it in a way that was probably the least cringy it could be, because like I said, they didn't even try to understand what it actually means. In fact, the mystery of what it means becomes a plot point in itself as everyone thinks it has something to do with the Antichrist. I also didn't really like the ending very much because, as I mentioned, it doesn't really make sense for Jesus to all of a sudden just switch to this new MAGA Christianity. But like I said, this is definitely setting up to be a multi-part overarching storyline that's probably going to be explained eventually. So until then, I can't really be too upset at the ending. But that's pretty much all I have to say about this episode. I'm going to go take a nap because I'm sick and tired. Probably going to take like a 6 or 7 hour long nap. I don't know, but I'll see y'all again when the next episode comes out.